Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is the latest movie from Marvel's lineup, so you're probably going to go see it anyway, but should you? Today I'm going to be giving you guys some thoughts I had on the movie. I've already had the good pleasure of seeing the movie twice, and my bias is out of the way here. I fucking loved the first Guardians movie. The first Guardians is probably my favorite Marvel movie that they've made so far, and I absolutely adored it. I think I saw it 5 or 6 times in theaters. So this is slightly biased, but there are problems with this movie. It does have some great moments, and it continues the story of great characters that they built from the first movie. So there is absolutely a lot to love in this new movie, but it doesn't quite match up. First off, in this movie, I think the standout character in this movie is Yondu. Surprisingly enough. He doesn't even show up until about 30 minutes through the movie, but Yondu, who I didn't really think anything of in the first movie, I kind of disliked him, honestly. Michael Rooker does such a great job of playing an asshole that it's hard to like him at first, but in this movie he really comes around on you. Kurt Russell in the movie is a perfect choice to play Star-Lord's father. He is absolutely just as charismatic and as built as his son, and it really plays well their dynamic, that family dynamic in this movie. I think that they played to that strong suit really well in here. And of course, Baby Groot. I admit Baby Groot is absolutely a marketing ploy just to sell a bunch of figurines and toys, and it works. He's adorable. He's definitely just the Olaf of this movie, or a minion, basically, but he's great. Every time you see him in the movie, he's great. He doesn't really serve the plot too much. There's not much characterization or even a story behind Baby Groot in this movie, but I mean, he's comic relief, and he's needed, honestly, because this movie is a lot more drier than the first Guardians. There's not as many jokes throughout the movie, and Baby Groot, definitely every time he shows up, there's a liveliness to it. But speaking about the lack of jokes, this movie takes a lot more time with its characters, which is kind of refreshing because it builds upon all these great characters that they established in the first movie. And it's not necessarily a bad thing that it's not as jokey. I mean, there are some great jokes. I think Drax and Baby Groot are by far the two characters that are the most jokey throughout the movie. Drax steals every scene that he's in, and so does Baby Groot, which doesn't make sense if you think about it, because you'd think, oh, they must be in a ton of scenes together, but in this movie, the Guardians are separated for most of it. Star-Lord, Gamora, and Drax are off doing their thing, meanwhile Rocket, Groot, and Yondu are off doing their other thing. I don't want to get too far into spoilers. I will be talking about spoilers later on in this review. I'll give you fair warning, though, to turn it off if you haven't seen the movie yet, which spoiler alert, you should watch the movie. But this movie definitely spends a lot more time with the characters. It plays very well to Star-Lord's feelings of abandonment with his father, and they explore that really well with Kurt Russell's character, as well as they really dive deep into Gamora and Nebula's relationship. Nebula is a weird character to me, because I actually enjoyed her character in this movie, but I still hate the actress. I think Nebula was by far the weakest link of the first movie, and I think the actress, Karen Gillan, no offense, I'm sure you're a lovely person, I think you're a terrible actress. I've seen her in a few things recently, besides the Guardians movies. I saw her in The Circle, and so far everything I've seen her in, I don't buy her. Again, not trying to insult you personally, Karen Gillan, just think that you weren't right for this role. And then of course the thing that got the most attention in Guardians is the soundtrack. First movie's soundtrack is great and it plays well with the film. This one is as well. The songs in this movie seem more important for the movie, which is kind of hard to explain. I don't want to go too deep into spoilers, but there's one song in particular in the movie that really relates to the characters, and they bring it up throughout the movie. And I think each song in the soundtrack works for each scene it is in, and it builds some great scenes. It has one of my favorite 80s songs in the first 5 minutes of the movie, creating one of the most memorable Guardian scenes ever. I think there's 3 sequences in this movie that are amazing, and they have 3 great songs to go along with each sequence, and I think each of those sequences are better than any of the sequences in the Guardians Volume 1, which is impressive. However, I don't see the soundtrack being something that I would put on while not watching the movie, unlike the first movie where I would listen to that soundtrack over and over in the car while driving. But now on to the negatives of the movie. First off, there's a general nitpicking of our characters are invulnerable. They survive impossible shit in every single movie, and it's a little bit it's hard to take the stakes seriously, especially when they actually have balls in these movies to kill off characters. I'm not spoiling anything for this movie, but like in the last movie, they kill off Groot in a way. I don't feel like they ever fully explained what each character can do in the first movie. Like Gamora, I feel like she was always just kind of human, like in a way. Like she is just heightened in combat, but in here she's like flying like 50 feet jumps and stuff, and she's like surviving, like dodging bullets and things like that. So I feel like her powers may not have been well defined. And then also there's a planet that they are on for a good 30 or so minutes of the movie. Some of the characters are on for even longer than that. But the planet just basically looks like Earth. It looks like they're in a forest on Earth. And I feel like Guardians does such a great job of having different and unique looking visuals, and I thought it was a little lazy for a 30-minute scene to take place in what was basically a Earth forest. Like it might as well have been Endor from Star Wars, where there's nothing too fantastical about it. And I mean, that does provide a practical set, so that whole place is practical. It's not a green screen, which is nice. But at the same time, I feel like I could have seen some cool outside-the-box scenery, so that felt like a wasted opportunity. But overall, this movie is a great time. You should absolutely go see it if you were a fan of the first movie. If you're not a fan of the first movie, I don't know why you're even watching a review for the second movie. You're probably not interested anyway. But anyway, I'd give this movie 7 out of 10 mixtapes. Definitely go see that this weekend. Watch it in IMAX 3D or Dolby 3D if you can. Now, I'm going to get into some spoilers if you guys feel like sticking around. But I'm going to have a big thing on the screen. I'm going to start talking spoilers in about 5 seconds. So, fair warning. You got a pretty face. Really, all I have to talk about in the spoiler department is I feel like the portrayal of Star-Lord's father, of Kurt Russell, was a little too foreshadowed. I don't mind foreshadowing at all. It's absolutely a great tool for rewatching movies. I feel like they foreshadowed a little too much with Mantis's character and how she keeps wanting to say things and they keep bringing it up. And I felt like it was a little too on the nose of, okay, this guy's going to betray them. But overall, the reveal still caught me off guard in the way of how he is going to betray them. So I can't fault the movie too much for that. And them having the balls to actually kill off Yondu. I thought the first movie was pretty brave for killing off Groot, but then of course they kind of went back on that, which is not a bad thing at all. I love Groot. But this movie, I feel like Yondu's death was very well earned. He was, like I said earlier, he was the standout in this movie. You absolutely felt for that character, and it just made me so much more invested whenever he dies. It's a powerful moment, I felt like, at the end. And then, for the after the credit scenes. This movie has a ridiculous amount of after the credit scenes, and only one of them really sets up a sequel. Maybe 2, but we'll see on that. Yeah, I'm going to break them down for you, each one here, though. The first after the credit scene was just Cracklin playing with the arrow, which I thought was some fun. The second scene was a little confusing until I did some research. I had Sylvester Stallone's character make a reprisal along with the woman from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon and a couple other people I didn't recognize, and they all just kind of get together. I was really confused on what that was. But I thought it was set up for like a villains in the next sequel, but after some research, apparently that was the original Guardians of the Galaxy team in the comics. So that was a nice little nod for the comic fans. And then of course the third scene was Teenage Groot, which makes me questionable on how Groot ages. Like, does 13 years or so pass between Guardians 2 and that scene? Like, how fast does Groot age in this movie? But if you turn your thinking brain off there for a second, it is just a dumb after the credit scene, and it's some fun. And then the fourth scene hints at Adam Warlock, who's basically the Doctor Strange of space and his creation. That's something that I don't expect to see until Guardians 3. I don't think they're going to shove Adam Warlock into Infinity War, since that movie's going to be so crowded with characters. And then of course the fifth scene is basically, I felt, the most lazy of them. It was just a reprisal of the Stan Lee cameo that happens about halfway through the movie, which is him talking to the Watchers. Also, David Hasselhoff sings an original song in the credits, so that's great. But if you guys have any opinions that differ from me or anything to add to the discussion, please leave a comment down below and I'll be reading and responding to all of those. So thank you for watching, and click subscribe, and you can see more content like this coming soon.